Please pardon the script, but I really want to make sure that I deliver a clear message. I want to revolutionize the way you think about strength training, and I call it creative movement coaching. This video addresses programming a single workout with a creative movement coaching mindset. When I work with a client, it's not really their body that I need to address, it's their mind. It's how they think about movement and exercise. Today, we'll address two common misconceptions. First is that all-out intensity all the time is the best way to get whatever our goal is. And second is that more exercises you can perform in a workout, the better your workout is. All-out intensity all the time is not the best way to approach to balance when it comes to any of this. Balance is the key word here. And if you can't learn to balance your intensity with some softness and grace, then you're basically colorblind. You're missing the full spectrum of color, softness, and yin energy. Furthermore, since simplicity is our goal, you want to learn how to approach an exercise from a variety of angles and intensities. We've been led to believe that a multi-exercise routine is the most advantageous way to reach our goals, and that's not true. What is true is that if you learn how to perform the most efficacious exercises from different angles and intensities, the variety is built in. The reason that basic primary movements are utilized so often is because they get the best results. Why not learn to manage the most successful and efficacious exercises with precision and diversity instead of constantly looking for new ones? The more diverse your individual workout, the more diffused your physiological focus is. Circuit training is beneficial for movement of the body and caloric expenditure, but lacks the metabolic efficiency of a bi-set training paradigm. It's two exercises. Your transformative energy is better served by maintaining the focus of a target exercise coupled with a peripheral or resetting movement. These are my terms. This holds true primarily when doing an upper body split, such as chest and back, or training with more intensity using an upper and lower body split. I'm going to demonstrate both scenarios. First, I'll demo the target and peripheral reset exercise using a chest and a pull down. Then I'll demo the upper lower body split using a pull down and split squat. Okay, so we're going to attack our first demonstration, which is the example of a target exercise focused on the chest, and then we'll do a resetting movement, which is a pull down. So if you want to target a particular area of the body, one of the best ways to do it, and this actually speaks to both upper and lower, but in this case we're obviously focusing on the chest, so we're in upper, is controlling our rib cage, basically the opening and closing, or the flexibility and mobility that we have in our thoracic body or our rib cage, and also the positioning of our pelvis, and the speed of the exercise as well. Weight selection has something to do with it as well, but we're going to focus on these two areas to create a very specific target, which is our pecs. So when you can control the movement of both of these regions, you're going to get a much better contraction of the muscle, thus working the muscle more, and then also creating the variety within the exercise, which is what we just spoke about, because I understand how to really target a particular area or take down the intensity of a particular movement. All right, so I'll go over it. I'm not even going to use any weight because I don't need to, and I'll see if I can give you this demo from here. So now, in this position, my chest is open, and I've basically created tons of slack in my body, meaning that I don't really have a great foundation through this region with this particular movement. You can see there's space here with my back too. So because I don't have that great foundation, it's going to be harder for me to get a great contraction out of the target muscles. However, if I literally close this area up, I have a more solid base to work from, and I can really hit that target. Now, this is essential for a lot of reasons, but for the most part, it really brings an awareness to the movement that we're doing. So in other words, if I choose to turn up the intensity and I only want to do 5 reps, I can do that, by simply closing these areas or maintaining control of these particular areas. If I don't, and I essentially want to use a spot for myself, I can then open them up, create more slack, and get more reps. It all depends upon how I want to frame the workout. So remember, you want to close the rib cage. You also want to neutralize the pelvis. In this particular place too, I might even, for example, I might grab a block, or I could roll up a towel and put it under my head. Now, when I do that, I have much more comfortable control out of this movement. So this obviously is a much better space for my head. And what also comes into play here is what you want to notice is that people have different thicknesses and widths to their bodies. So this is a great thing for me to have, right? Because there's a lot of meat there, right in my upper back and shoulders. But for someone who has less, they might need a smaller block. So just a couple of things to pay attention to when you're attacking this movement. Now I'm on to the accessory or resetting exercise that I'm using with the chest press. The exercise I'm going to use for that resetting exercise or peripheral exercise is a pull down. Essentially, the reason I'm using the pull down with a target chest exercise is because when I'm working the chest in a very strict form, such as the one I did, and even in a not so strict form, I'm just going to naturally become internally rotated. So these muscles here, the chest, are probably going to get relatively tight. Speaking from a perspective of someone who doesn't have a lot of laxity in the shoulder joint. And so the exercise works best to target when you can reset the body after doing a particular strict exercise. So what I want to do essentially is I want to keep moving. I want to activate muscles also too that support the target exercise, which is or are the lats. So when I'm doing the exercise, I'm doing essentially an activation movement of the exercise, and I'm also doing a resetting movement for the chest. So I'm stretching the chest open. Now, I'm going to use the same weight that I might use for a strict version of the pull down, which I'll do in the next video. However, I'm doing it in a completely different way, and I have a completely different mindset. Now, this might be a strict pull down, and you can see I'm staying very still. I'm really stable in that movement. I'm super targeting the lats. Now I'm going to do a resetting movement, okay, which I'm using with the target movement, the strict chest press. Now, I'm allowing a lot of movement in that particular movement. I'm allowing a lot of flow in that particular movement. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm externally rotating my upper arms, bringing my scapula together, thus creating the stretch across the chest. So this gives me a really good opportunity to have a lot of resetting and possibly even resetting the humerus in the shoulder joint while I do the exercise. And in addition to that, you continue to activate the lats, which are definitely going to help support the stricter chest press. Here's our next two, and we're on to a whole different split. So we just looked at the pull down with a peripheral or resetting type of movement. Now we're going to look at a strict pull down, and we're going to experiment with getting a really deep contraction around our lats. And a couple of things when I approach this. First of all, now, most of these exercises come from a bodybuilding paradigm. So when you have a bodybuilding paradigm, most of the people doing or demonstrating the exercises are bodybuilders, and that means that they have big muscles. So a lot of times you see bodybuilders, they grab the bar really wide and they draw that bar down and in, and that's because their lats are so big they get that great contraction from a wide hand grip. Most of us who are a little bit more up and down, it's much more advantageous to grab the bar probably just a bit wider than the shoulders, just wide enough so I don't internally rotate. In addition to that, there's an idea that we're going to pull that bar straight down as low as I possibly can. However, that may not be the best angle to get the contraction. So I'm going to show you a really great angle to use when you use a pull down to get a really good contraction out of your lats. So I am actually going to set myself a little bit back and away from the bar. So notice I'm pulling in just on a bit of an angle, bringing those shoulders down. I'm also utilizing the same body position I did on the chest press, right? So I don't have my back and butt out. I have a little bit of neutralization both here in the rib cage and the pelvis. And draw that bar down and in. So the key thing here, right, is body position, slowness of movement, and awareness. Now, the prescribed way of doing things might not always be the best way. That's why it's super important to always experiment and stay aware. All right, here's the second example with the split, the upper, lower body strict split, which is, now it could be for the beginner exerciser if I choose to stay more disengaged on both exercises. It, however, can become more for the advanced exerciser if I choose, like I'm doing in this particular example, to stay strict in the form of a particular exercise. So we saw that strict form in the upper body. We're not going to do particularly resetting movement in between because we're doing upper lower body. So we're going to stay really strict on one of my favorite leg exercises that hits a lot of the upper leg. It's basically a split squat. So the theme being, right, through this whole thing, that what you saw is that I really maintain control of what's going on in the rib cage and what's going on in the pelvis. So those are the foundation for all of my movements. So it's rib cage, pelvis, and then we come shoulder joint. It's easier to hold the hip joint in place. We don't have to think about that much. However, pelvic positioning and also sort of compression of the rib cage or contraction of the core musculature while doing the movement is incredibly important if we want a really good contraction. So if I want to set up the split squat, I like to use this little wedge right here in the back, okay? I'm going to bring that foot up. I'm going to transfer all that energy right there into the front foot. Now, it might be normal. I see a lot of people when they approach a particular exercise is they take that position, right? So this is like this sort of fight or flight thing. Like there's a lot of anxiety in that. The head is up, I'm looking, the chest is up and out, right? I want to be vulnerable a little bit too. I'm going to collapse. I'm going to bring my head down. I'm going to send my energy into the floor. That's my grounding energy. So I'm going to step back. I'm relaxed in the head. I'm relaxed here. Thus able then to neutralize the pelvis. And come up. Staying focused, staying aware. Where is the contraction going? So I want to be particularly aware of that. So I'm trying to target hamstrings and glutes. So that super slowness of the contraction, that paying attention to the pelvis and rib cage, that's going to give me the contraction that I need. I don't need to add a lot of weight because I have the ability to alter the load simply by how I position my body. So that's really important to remember, is that we don't need to go up in weight. We do, however, need to pay attention. We do, however, need to pay attention to how we hold ourselves.